Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the fascinating, sometimes unexpected, and downright microscopic corners of the natural world. Today, we're zooming right in on a hidden group of fungi, really often overlooked, with truly unique lives, the Trichomycetes. Our mission, well, it's to take you on a detailed journey through their biology, their ecology, basically drawing directly from foundational mycology research. We're going to try and make some, complex biology not just accessible, but hopefully really engaging and relevant for you. Because you might think you know fungi, right? But how about this? Fungi living inside insects and crustaceans. That's not just interesting. That's definitely worth a deep dive.
Oh, it absolutely is. What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how these organisms really challenge our conventional understanding of what fungi are and what they do. From a biological standpoint, Trichomycetes are, ecologically and morphologically distinct from pretty much all other known fungi.
Distinct how, exactly?
Well, their peculiar nature really stems from their obligate association, and that means they must live with arthropods. And what's particularly intriguing and keeps researchers busy is that the exact nature of these intimate relationships, well, it's still a subject of ongoing scientific inquiry. It's a really rich field.
Okay, so you said obligate association. That sounds pretty serious. What does obligate truly imply for their day-to-day survival? How does that challenge our typical ideas?
It implies, well, everything for them. Unlike a lot of fungi that can just live freely in the soil or on decaying wood, Trichomycetes are completely dependent on their living arthropod hosts. We're talking insects, millipedes, crustaceans. They need them for survival, for reproduction.
And they live inside them.
Mostly, yes. Most actually grow internally, primarily in the hindgut of their hosts. There's only one known species that lives on the outer surface, which is actually quite rare for the group. This dependency just means their entire life cycle is, completely intertwined with their hosts. They're a truly specialized group.
Right. And living inside something else.
Yeah.
That immediately makes you think symbiosis, doesn't it? How do we actually categorize these internal partnerships? Is it friendly? Is it harmful?
That's a great question because symbiosis definitely comes up a lot. Now, the precise nature, whether it's strictly parasitic or maybe mutually beneficial or even just commensal, where, one benefits and the other isn't really affected, that isn't always definitively clear for every single species. So the broader definition of symbiosis, thinking of it more as a continuum of different associations, is being used more and more.
Ah, okay. So it's not always black and white.
Exactly. This broader view lets us acknowledge the whole spectrum of ways these fungi interact with their hosts. And it can even change, depending on ecological conditions or maybe the host's age or life stage.
And the name itself, Trichomycetes, gives us a bit of a clue, right? Hair fungi. Our sources mention that the larger collections, the phalli that's their body, basically can get so dense inside the gut that they give it a fuzzy or hairy appearance. Can you imagine that? A fuzzy gut lining.
Thanks to fungi. Hey, yeah, a rather unique internal landscape, you could say. And it's important to think about the host's environment, too. Often, these arthropods are aquatic forms, maybe larvae of insects that aren't aquatic as adults, and they mostly feed on detritus, decaying stuff or algae. This diet is actually really crucial because it directly influences the fungi's habitat and, importantly, how they get access to the nutrients they need to absorb.
Okay, so let's dig into the anatomy a bit. You said mostly microscopic, but a few are visible. Their main body, the thallus, branched or unbranched. But how do they actually stay put inside a gut that must be, constantly moving, processing food? That sounds like a real challenge.
It absolutely is, and that's where their specialized structure is key. Most Trichomyces attach themselves really firmly to the chitinous lining of the host's gut. They use something called a holdfast. It's like a little anchor.
A holdfast, okay.
And this is crucial because, with one exception we might touch on, these fungi don't usually penetrate through the gut lining into the host's actual tissues. They just anchor themselves securely right there on the inside surface. They're basically just hanging on.
Wow. So they manage to stay put without actually invading the host's body. But, okay, that raises another question. If they're not penetrating, how on earth do they eat? How do they get nutrients?
Right. They absorb nutrients directly from the stuff floating around in the gut lumen. They're essentially bathed in whatever the host has digested.
So they're just soaking it up.
Seems like a passive absorption strategy, yes. But what's even more complex and really interesting is the impact they have on their arthropod hosts. It can vary wildly. Sometimes it seems like they're giving a helping hand. Other times, well, it can be more like a deadly grip.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, give us an example. How could a fungus living inside an insect actually help it? What's the beneficial side look like?
Absolutely. Let's look at the beneficial side first. There's research on Smittium culisetae. It's a trichomycete found in mosquito larvae. In experiments, when mosquito larvae were deliberately deprived of essential things like sterols and certain B vitamins, things they need, well, the larvae that had Smittium culisetae inside them actually survived through more instars, those are their developmental stages between molts, than the larvae without the fungus.
No way. So the fungus was actually helping them survive tough conditions.
Exactly. It suggests the fungus enhances the host's fitness, especially under nutritional stress. What's truly fascinating here is how a guest, so to speak, can become so vital for survival. It's like a tiny internal pharmacy for the mosquito.
That's incredible. A fungal helper right there in the gut. But, since there's a but, not all these relationships are quite so cozy, are they? What's the flip side?
Unfortunately, no, not always. On the flip side, you have species like Smittium or Botham. This one is definitely pathogenic. It can actually kill mosquito larvae. It does this by penetrating through the cuticle lining, getting into the cells of the hindgut wall, and directly messing with the molting process.
Oh, wow. So it stops them from shedding their skin properly.
Exactly. It interferes with that crucial process. So you see this amazing spectrum from a fungus that helps its host survive when food is scarce to one that actively kills its host by disrupting a fundamental biological process. It really shows the diverse roles these organisms play.
Okay, let's talk about the next generation then. How do these unique fungi reproduce and spread, especially when they're trapped inside a host that's, moving around, or worse, shedding its gut lining when it molts? That sounds like a huge hurdle.
It's a massive challenge, absolutely. And they've evolved some really ingenious solutions. Trichomycetes have quite a diverse array of asexual reproductive strategies. Some produce amoeboid cells, single cells that can kind of move like amoebas. Others make arthrospores or different types of sporangiospores. But there's a really special structure produced mainly by the Harpellales order called the trichospore.
Trichospore. Okay, what's special about that?
Imagine these tiny, highly specialized spores. They're basically little packages that burst open, each holding a single reproductive cell. But here's the kicker. They have one or sometimes several filamentous appendages attached at the base. These are continuous with the spore wall itself.
So like little hairs or tails sticking off the spore.
Exactly. Think of them as tiny spores with sticky hair-like extensions, almost perfectly designed to get tangled up in things.
Ah, so those appendages must be key for dispersal then. How do they actually work? Do they just sort of snag onto food particles?
That's the thinking. These long appendages are thought to aid in, well, passive transmission. They get tangled in the host's food material, maybe detritus in the water. Then, when they're ingested by a suitable new host, and sometimes they can be quite specific about the host, these trichospores germinate really quickly. The inner part of the spore breaks through its outer wall, and crucially, it attaches firmly to that gut lining we talked about, using a holdfast, ready to grow into a new thallus. It's incredibly efficient.
But you mentioned molting earlier. That still sounds like a big problem. If the host just sheds its entire gut lining, doesn't that just eject all the fungi?
It certainly is a critical challenge. When arthropods molt, they shed their exoskeleton and that chitinous gut lining. Normally, yes, that would take any attached fungal thalli right out with it.
So how do they cope?
Well, some species have evolved this fascinating adaptation. They seem to respond to the arthropod's own molt hormone, the chemical signal that triggers molting. In response, they produce specialized spores, often thick-walled, that are specifically designed to survive dispersal outside the host, in the external environment.
Clever. So they time their escape, essentially.
It ensures the fungus can persist outside the host during that vulnerable molting period and then find and infect a new host, or maybe even the same host after it molts. It's a remarkable piece of coevolution.
Amazing. Okay, what about sexual reproduction? You've mentioned all these clever asexual tricks. Do trichomycetes ever, reproduce sexually?
Well, direct conclusive proof for sexual reproduction is actually lacking for most trichomycetes. It's hard to observe directly, however, for the Harpellales order, which remember includes most of the known genera. They produce these distinctive biconical, thick-walled structures. They're called zygospores.
Zygospores. Sounds like something sexual.
That's the thought. They are widely believed to be the result of sexual reproduction, probably forming after a kind of conjugation, a fusion between different thalles, different fungal bodies. And these zygospores also likely play a role in dispersal. They can leave the host's gut, survive in the environment, and then, if ingested by a new host, they germinate and give rise to new phalli. Another strategy for survival and propagation.
Okay, so we've got all this diversity, different structures, holdfasts, maybe septa, maybe not, different spores, different relationships with hosts.
Yeah.
How do scientists actually organize all this? What does the family tree for these hair fungi look like? It feels like they don't neatly fit into the usual fungal boxes.
That's a great way to put it. They really don't. Based primarily on the morphology of their thallus, its shape and structure, and their asexual reproductive structures, Trichomycetes are divided into 4 distinct orders. These are the Harpellales, the Amoebidiales, the Asellariales, and the Eccrinales. And each one has its own set of defining characteristics.
Right. Can you give us a quick snapshot of each? What makes them different? Any standout details?
Sure. Let's see. The Harpellales are characterized by having septate mycelia, meaning they have those internal cross walls. They can be branched or unbranched. And they're the only order known to produce both those specialized trichospores and the zygospores we just discussed. They seem restricted to aquatic insect larvae. And the genus Smittium is important because it's one of the very few that researchers have managed to grow in pure culture in the lab.
Okay, culture is tricky then. What about the next one?
Next, the Amoebidiales. This is the smallest order. They have unbranched aseptate mycelia, so no cross walls, and they reproduce using those amoeboid cells or different kinds of sporangiospores. Amoebidium parasiticum is a really interesting one here. It was actually the first trichomycete ever cultured in the lab, and it's unique because it grows externally on its hosts, unlike most of the others living inside the gut.
External, okay, that is different. And the others?
Then there's Asellariales, another small order. They have branched septate hyphae, and they reproduce asexually, just by forming arthrospores, basically. The hyphae break up into spore-like fragments. And finally, the Eccrinales. This is the largest order, and it boasts the widest variety of hosts and habitats. Get this, including a crustacean found living way down near deep-sea hydrothermal vents.
Wow, hydrothermal vents, that's extreme.
Isn't it? They have unbranched aseptate somatic hyphae, and they produce 2 main types of sporangiospores. One is thick-walled, probably for surviving outside the host during molting, like we discussed. And the other is thin-walled, likely for rapidly increasing the infestation inside the gut.
What an amazing range. And I think you hinted earlier, there's still some debate about whether they all belong together, right? Was it one big happy family, evolutionarily speaking? Or are they just grouped together because they all happen to live in guts? Is this a real evolutionary lineage or more like a club for gut dwellers?
That is the key question in the field, really. It's an active area of scientific debate. This whole phylogenetic question, their evolutionary relationships, are they truly a monophyletic group? Did they all arise from one single common ancestor? Or is it more like convergent evolution, where different fungal groups independently adapted to this gut-dwelling lifestyle?
So what's the evidence point toward?
Well, it's complex, but one fascinating clue comes from a specific structural detail we haven't fully unpacked yet. Those unique perforate septa found in orders like Asellariales and Harpellales. Remember, septa are the cross walls. In these groups, the septum wall flares out around this electron-dense sort of double bump plug. It's called a biumbonate plug.
Sounds complicated, like a specialized seal.
Exactly. It's a complex, very tightly sealed connection. You can imagine it has to be strong given the forces inside a gut. Now, this unique design isn't just random, it's striking similarity to structures found in other fungi. Specifically, some Zygomycetes like Lindorina penispra is a really powerful clue. It's like a microscopic fingerprint. It helps mycologists piece together the big, sprawling family tree of fungi, suggesting maybe these gut dwellers do share a deeper common ancestry, even if their current club seems defined by lifestyle.
Okay, that's a deep connection. So, stepping back, why should we, really care about these microscopic fungi hiding in insect guts? What's the real-world relevance here?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I think these tiny fungi can tell us so much about life's deep past and its really intricate web of connections. First, ecologically. Given that they're so common in detritus-feeding aquatic arthropods, things that break down dead stuff in water, they likely play a pretty significant role in nutrient cycling within those ecosystems, helping to break down organic matter, moving energy through food webs. That's important stuff.
Right, part of the unseen cleanup crew.
Exactly. Second, think about biotechnology and basic research. The challenges and the successes in culturing them, like with Smittium and Amoebidium, give us really valuable insights into fungal growth, nutrition, host interaction. This knowledge could have knock-on effects for understanding gut microbiomes more broadly, maybe even our own, or perhaps for developing new approaches to pest control.
Pest control, how so? Like using the pathogenic ones?
Potentially, yes. If we understand precisely how a fungus like Smittium morbosum kills mosquito larvae by disrupting molting, that opens the door perhaps to exploring similar mechanisms for biological control of specific insect pests, maybe offering an alternative to broad-spectrum chemical pesticides. It's early days, but the potential is there.
Interesting. And any other big reasons?
Yes, and maybe the most profound one connects back to that evolutionary history. The discovery of what looks like a fossil trichomycete from the Triassic period that suggests this association with arthropods is incredibly ancient, hundreds of millions of years old. This offers just incredible clues to co-evolutionary history, helping us piece together the deep, deep past of life on Earth. These tiny fungi are like living historical documents.
Wow. Okay. From fuzzy guts and holdfasts to ancient history and potential biotech, these Trichomycetes are truly a hidden marvel. So just to wrap things up quickly, we've learned Trichomycetes are this unique class of fungi, completely tied to arthropods, mostly living inside their guts. They've got diverse structures, those hold fast, different kinds of septa, fascinating reproductive strategies like trichospores, maybe zygospores, and their roles are complex, right? From being helpful symbionts aiding survival to being outright pathogens that can kill their hosts.
Absolutely. And despite being relatively obscure, not headline-grabbing fungi, trichomycetes remain a really rich and active field of study. They keep revealing the incredible diversity and adaptability of life. They really challenge our simple definitions of symbiosis, and they offer these vital clues to the evolutionary history of both fungi and the arthropods they live with. There's still just so much to learn within this tiny hidden world. Every new discovery kind of reshapes our understanding.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If such a complex, specialized world exists right there, inside the guts of tiny arthropods, thriving in these unexpected ways, what other hidden biological marvels are still out there, waiting to be discovered, maybe right beneath our noses, or even inside other organisms we interact with every single day? It definitely makes you wonder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the weird and wonderful world of Trichomycetes. We really hope it sparks your own curiosity to keep exploring the natural world around you.